Hi, it's Natalie with Global Escapes, and I'm here with one of our favorite destination specialists, Trafalgar. Ashley Vaughn is with us, and she's going to talk to us about one of our favorite destinations as well, South America. So, Ashley, can you tell me a little bit about how clients can experience the aspects of European travel in the continent of South America?
When your clients are asking to go to Europe, what are kind of the highlights of things that they want to do when they go?
A lot of times they're looking for city stays. They love art, culture, food, um, dancing, basically a cultural immersion.
And you know what's interesting about South America is that I like to refer to it as Europe Light. If you think about the history of South America, it was populated by pre-Columbian culture, so a lot of native people. Then you had the Spaniards come in the 1500s. So it was automatically getting that European influence. And then later in the 19th and 20th century, you had people coming from Spain and Italy, Germany, coming into South America and really putting their stamp on it. So there's so many cool things to do in South America that have that European influence. I'd say out of the whole continent, Argentina is probably the most European in feel. You have areas like Bariloche, which they call Little Switzerland. We actually use a hotel that's called the Edelweiss Bariloche. So you can't get more European than that in South America. And just the cities in Argentina, like Buenos Aires, you have really cool things going on there. The dancing, yes. A lot of it is influenced from European dancing. The art itself has that European feel, but the cities have a European feel. They have grand cathedrals and they have the theaters that are emulated. Exactly, the architecture is very European in feeling. So there's a very consistent European feel as you go through South America, even though they're speaking Spanish and the people and the culture is a little bit different. It's a little bit more passionate, maybe.
Would you say, I think another part of the hesitation, especially with my clients in Europe in general or South America in general, would be the cultural aspect. I mean, not the cultural, the cuisine.
Yes.
The cuisine. There's a hesitation with the food in South America and not so much with Europe.
Right.
What are your thoughts on the food scene?
It's interesting because when you think of South America, you think kind of exotic foods. But the reality is that if you're in areas in the north of South America, like Peru, Ecuador, even parts of Brazil and Venezuela, these areas, they have that native influence. So you're looking at a lot of dishes that are based on corn, tomatoes, beans, kind of the three sisters of the Native Americans that we would have here. So it's got like that indigenous feel to it. In Argentina in the south, they have the pampas, and you have the cattle that they're raising there, some of the best beef in the world, the barbacoa, if you will, and you're going out and having the barbecues with the gauchos, and so they have a lot of steak dishes. So a lot of it's really recognizable for American travelers especially, And again, I think it's taking some of the European influence and just kicking it up with the flavors of Latin America, which is cool.
Very nice. And then in regards to art, touch a little bit on the art lovers and wine lovers as well. Both of those are big. Popular places for our travelers too.
I love food and wine when I travel, so South America is a dream because there's so much diversity in things to eat, things to try. There are more exotic dishes. You have like the cuy, the little guinea pigs that they eat in the south.
Had that.
So you don't have to do it, but it is an interesting
experience.
Exactly. But the wine that they're making in South America is amazing. You have the Bariloche region in Argentina, which is fabulous. Mendoza, of course. Chile is a country that is making some really superb wines. And what's cool is they do red and whites because Chile is this little tiny strip, from the north to the south. And you have the desert in the north, you have the glaciers in the south, and you're making red wines in one part and white wines in another. So huge diversity there. When it comes to art, there's actually a lot of really cool art things. We go into Peru and we have a couple of different experiences. One of my favorites is when we go to Casa Diaz Canseco. And the Diaz Canseco family is really long standing in Lima. They are tied to several Peruvian presidents. And over the years, being a very influential family, they've acquired a lot of art, but it's an interesting mix of pre-Columbian and European art.
Oh.
So you have, beautiful decorated tables from Venice from the 16th century, and then you have some pre-Columbian pots. And just learning the history of all of that, there's actually a really important painting of their great-grandmother who was the wife of a very popular Peruvian president. So just the history of the art and how it ties to their family specifically. We get to have lunch with them, so we get to hear a lot of those stories, and that's a really cool experience.
So for the people that have done the must-see, must-haves of South America, the Galapagos, Machu Picchu, we've been to Patagonia, Iguazu Falls, what are some other offers that the continent has that maybe are off the beaten path that the average traveler wouldn't think about or even have an interest in?
Yeah, I think there's a lot in South America. It's a massive continent, right? And we think about maybe for a first timer hitting those must-sees, must-dos like Machu Picchu, and you were saying the Galapagos. A lot of people forget about Chile. It's an amazing country. It has so much diversity in the landscapes, going from the Atacama in the north down to literally glaciers and penguins and an Alaska type setting in the south. And even that's kind of twisted around in our brains because that would be backwards for here in the US.
Exactly.
And that's cool. That's really cool to have that kind of polar opposite type of thing going on. And so Chile's got a lot to offer. It's got beautiful alpine lakes. It's got some really great coastal cities like Puerto Montt and just really interesting things to see in just one sliver of a country in South America. And then I think parts of the more popular countries like Brazil and Argentina also get forgotten. People think about going to Rio and they think about going to Buenos Aires, but they don't really think of anything else outside of that. And you have Mendoza and Bariloche we talked about for the wine areas. There's also a lot of chocolate stuff going on there. Huge cacao plantations.
Yes.
So you've got lots of different kinds of chocolates, and you can't go and learn about chocolate without tasting chocolate. So that's always important. And getting that mixture of the art and the culture as well as the food and wine aspect of the destination. I think another country that's really overlooked is Ecuador.
Absolutely.
Ecuador is a fantastic place. What do you think of when you think of Ecuador? What comes to mind?
From a consulting standpoint
Just
or
from
a
a
client traveler standpoint, completely Galapagos Islands. Most people, Quito is a stop. It's a connection to get out to Galapagos, and there's not a lot of emphasis placed in the interior part of the country at all. And personally, I'm a jungle girl, jungle lover, and Ecuador has some of the most diverse rainforests, incredible hanging bridges, lot of lodges that are deep in the forest, and you don't have to go through Brazil. Most people just want to go to the Amazon, and the rainforest is in Brazil. But it's actually really great in Ecuador.
Yeah, a lot of people don't think about Ecuador and the Amazon. They think
Yeah.
you have to go to Brazil to get to the Amazon. And it's not true. Definitely not true. You can hit it from Ecuador, from Peru, and from
Colombia,
Brazil.
too.
Yeah, exactly.
All the above.
It's a huge rainforest, so you're going to get lots of exposure to it. But I think one of the things I found fascinating about Ecuador is that nearly 90% of the roses that are sold in the United States are actually grown in Ecuador and shipped here.
That's right.
It's fascinating. A really cool experience that we have is we go out to a hacienda in Ecuador and we actually visit the rose plantation where they're raising some of these really beautiful flowers.
wow.
And we get to learn a little bit about that process and what they do to raise the roses, and they're in these beautiful greenhouses, and then we get to sit down and have like a traditional lunch with the family. So it's a very cool experience. But roses, Ecuador, I would never have put that
Wow.
together before.
That's an incredible experience to be able to sit down with a local farming family and experience one-on-one. That's pretty
Yeah, and
incredible.
in their haciendas, very traditional experience, you know, meeting the family, getting to meet multi-generations that are living there and working at the plantation. So
Absolutely. That's fantastic. A lot of people would probably think of a situation like that or a tour like that in Italy, per se, not really South America.
right, yeah, you don't
Yeah.
really think about Europe, and you think about the tulips or
Uh-huh.
the flowers, things like that, but yeah, not
Yeah.
South America.
Not at all.
People don't necessarily think of South America as maybe being one of the safest destinations in the world, and it really is. I mean, Trafalgar will be celebrating its 70th birthday next year.
Yay, congratulations.
Thank you. So we've been traveling to these destinations week in and week out for many, many years. And one of the things that I think is important for consumers to really keep in mind is if we feel like a destination is unsafe, that's our primary concern. We want you to have fun, but we also want you to be secure. And we'll stop going to a destination if we don't feel that it's right for our consumers. We haven't stopped going anywhere in South America. We've had no incidents at all. It's incredibly wonderful place to visit, and it's incredibly safe. So I think the beauty of being in a guided experience is that you have a group of about 40, 45 people. You have Spanish speaking local travel directors. So something happens, you know they're with you the entire way. You really get that peace of mind of being able to explore something that's completely new. You've been everywhere in Europe, you're ready to try something, dip your toe into South America, get that flavor of Europe, but really get exposed to something that's completely off the beaten path.
So South America has so much to offer to the adventure traveler. What are some of the top itineraries that you think stick out for the adventure?
I think that's what makes South America so cool is that you do have that European influence, but then you do have a lot of active adventure types of activities. I'd say probably the most adventurous destination is Peru because from Peru you have Machu Picchu, which is really popular. You have the Amazon that you can reach as well. So there's a lot of different kinds of adventure types of activities. I think one of the things I hear most often from consumers and the stories that they come back and tell me about is their experience going into Machu Picchu and their desire to experience the Inca Trail. And for a lot of us, I know me, I'm not the active adventure hiking kind of person, but I'd like to have an exposure to that. And so people don't necessarily realize that Machu Picchu is not just one lone peak in this vast flatland. There are several peaks around it, and nearby you have Huachu Picchu. And you can actually do a small 4-hour hike on a portion of the Inca Trail. And for a lot of people, that's just enough to say, I've done it, or to get the flavor of it without committing to the full 28-kilometer intense overnight backpacking kind of experience, which is not for everybody.
That's right. No permit. Now, is the with the with traveling with Trafalgar, you guys assist with the permits that would be necessary for any of those type of itineraries? It's pretty turnkey for the traveler, from the traveler's aspect.
It is, and what I think is really brilliant about Trafalgar is the opportunity we have with our local travel directors to make some of those experiences happen. So we don't actually sell an experience to Huachu Picchu, but because of the way that the itinerary is laid out and because we have that opportunity of communicating things that consumers want to do before they get there, we can actually let the travel directors know ahead of time that on the free day we have in Machu Picchu, these guests are really interested in hiking to Huachu Picchu. So once the consumer gets there, the guest arrives, the travel director already knows what they want to do and can start the plans of making that happen for them. So it's a very organic type of experience. It's not something you necessarily pre-book, but we definitely assist in making those things happen for people as they're traveling, which is great.
Nice. Yes, very nice. Peru is a very authentic destination to visit. It's absolutely incredible.
It does. Now, I know you've been to Peru. What's some of your favorite active adventure types of activities?
Yeah, so I'm not a backpacker either, maybe for 2 hours at a time, but I did get to witness the actual, the porters on the Inca Trail, so that was really neat. And I think that the smaller places in the Sacred Valley were my favorite. The Cusco is a wonderful city in the mountains, and in a lot of ways, the actual concept of Machu Picchu outshines a lot of the other diamonds that the country offers. I mean, Cusco, I could have spent easily a week in. It's just fantastic. And getting out and meeting the local people and having a local meal in their house makes all the difference in the world.
It does.
Absolutely.
And I think that's probably the second most memorable thing that our guests tell me about. Their stories from when they go into Cusco. We actually work with a local cooperative there. Our sister organization, if you want to call it, is Tread Right Foundation. So we actually have many different partners around the world where we're trying to give back to the destinations that we travel to. And one of the highlights for a lot of our guests is when we go into Cusco, when we go to this cooperative where it's a school. They're teaching future generations the techniques of textile weaving, the traditional Andean textiles.
Oh, wow.
And so you get to meet these ladies who are teaching the younger generations and how they're preserving this. And it's really important because it is a skill and an art that's so unique to that area, as you experienced. And just knowing that every time you visit there, you're actually giving back to the destination is something that our guests really enjoy. And see, it's real. You know, there's a lot of opportunities when you travel that you go to that arts and crafts kind of thing and you get that
Box.
experience, and then they send you into a warehouse where you can buy a lot of stuff, and it doesn't feel real. And this is a very real experience for a lot of people.
That's true. To see the person weaving it and then make a purchase directly from her it's incredible.
I think travel gives us a unique opportunity to experience other cultures. And so we've included a new extension this year into Ecuador where you get to go out into the Amazon and not only just stay in the lodges for a few days, but go into local communities and purify water systems, build schools, dig wells, really impact the local communities there. And I think that's one of the coolest things about travel is that we travel in order to get experiences. And the people that we meet, the experiences that we have leave an imprint on our lives, which is the most memorable part of our trip, even though it's intangible. But imagine being able to also leave an imprint on the local community because you're giving back and you're interacting with them and you're making their lives better. And that's just a phenomenal experience for people to enjoy.
And I think that's important, especially with the stories that you're telling from Trafalgar, that it's more of an experience for your traveler and not a trip. It's a trip, but it's not a trip. It's an experience that they're going to keep with them.
I loved hearing your stories, Natalie. I know South America is one of your favorite destinations and you're so passionate about it. And thank you so much for having me because I love talking about South America as well. It is truly a really cool place to go and everybody needs to visit. I really want to hear your stories too, from your experiences on your next South America amazing adventure that you're going to have from Global Escapes.